24/7, always nourishing our souls. And this morning or afternoon, depending on where we are physically, we are very, very grateful to the Spirit Doctor Andre Lewis and to the blessed mediumship of Chico Xavier because we are about to start the study of the book Liberation that they wrote in a blessed partnership. And this book, dear friends, is all the more liberating, as the title indicates, because it shows us how the lower spheres of the spiritual realm operate and how they interact with us on a daily basis. And most importantly, how a motherly, angelic love can heal deep wounds that have lasted for centuries. So it is a message of hope, of courage, and of joy, which Master Jesus has taught us is the trademark of the followers of the good news. So let us visualize our beloved Master right here with us, inspiring us and guiding us in this new journey. And of course, we have our dear and beautiful sunshine spreading light coast to coast, also 24/7 in and beyond Kardec Radio. Thank you, Sunshine, for shining through. Welcome, dear friend.
Hello, dear Carol. Beautiful Carol. Thank you so much. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here.
Likewise, thank you for our partnership in this beautiful journey, Sunshine.
It is a blessing, for sure.
Yes. Could you please guide us in an opening prayer?
Yes, certainly,
Thank
Carol.
you.
You're welcome. I invite everyone, if you can, to close your eyes and feel your feet firmly on the ground. And let us visualize opening our hearts and minds, turning the mirror of our soul, connecting with God, infinite love. And let us also connect with Jesus, who is our guide and model. And it is with gratitude that we also connect with the mentors of Kardec Radio, the mentors of our group, the mentors of each and every single one of you listening. If it wasn't for all of the mentors, we wouldn't be able to gather this morning to learn new immortal lessons, to learn of how we can every single day loosen our bonds to the lower vibrations and rising above, connecting with the divine light, the divine love, the divine teachings. And we pray that we will practice the teachings every single day, starting with our thinking, so we can align ourselves more with the immense love that this universe is made out of, the immense love that is surrounding us and connecting us all. And with this, we ask for permission to start this morning's gathering, and so be it.
So be it. Thank you, dear Sunshine.
Thank you, dear Carol.
So, right now, dear friends, we are going to start our study of the book Liberation by learning from the Spirit Mentor Emmanuel in his beautiful preface. Could you please start the reading, Sunshine, for us?
Yes,
Thank
certainly.
you.
So the preface is titled At the Open Gates. At the open entrance gates to the Christian endeavor and edifying knowledge that André Louis is disclosing to us, We're pleased to recall an ancient Egyptian tale about a little red fish. In the middle of a beautiful yard, there was a large pond lined with turquoise blue tiles. The pond was fed by a small stone canal, and its waters exited through a narrow grated opening at the opposite end. In this welcoming pond lived a large community of fish, lolling about, well fed and content, in intricate hiding places that were luxuriant and shady. These fish had elected one of their finned comrades to act as their king, and there they lived completely unconcerned amidst gluttony and idleness. Amongst them, however, lived a little red fish who was bullied by all the others. He wasn't allowed to look for even the smallest worm or find shelter in one of the muddy crooks and crannies. Being voracious and pot-bellied, the other fish hogged the best worms for themselves, and they indifferently occupied all the places meant for rest. The little red fish swam and suffered. He moved about constantly, persecuted by the heat or tormented by hunger. Since he couldn't find a spot in which to rest in his vast home, the little fish didn't have much time for leisure, so he began to take quite an interest in studying the pond. He counted all the tiles that lined the sides of the pond. He made a list of all the crannies and caves, and he knew exactly where most of the mud would accumulate as a result of downpours. After a long time and much investigation, he discovered the barred drain. Faced with an unforeseen opportunity for a world of healthy adventure, he said to himself, "Wouldn't it be interesting to get to know life better and explore other places?" He decided to leave. In spite of the fact that he was so skinny from lack of nourishment, he still suffered terribly when he lost several scales as he swam through the very narrow passageway. Saying encouraging promises to himself, he advanced optimistically along the canal, enchanted with the new scenery rich with flowers and sunlight, and he continued on inebriated with hope. After a while, the red fish reached a big river and made a lot of new acquaintances. He met fish from many different families who befriended him, advising him about the problems he might run into along the way and pointing out the easiest course. He was astonished to see humans and animals on the banks, boats and bridges, and in palaces and vehicles, cottages and woodlands. Since he was used to having little, he lived very frugally, thus never losing his lightness and natural agility. At last the red fish reached the ocean, swooning from the newness and thirsting for exploration. To start with, enraptured by his passion for observation, he approached a big whale for whom all the water of the pond in which he had lived would be nothing but a small sip. Impressed with this spectacle, he came closer than he should have and was sucked in along with the elements that made up the whale's first meal of the day. In such a fix, the little fish prayed to the fish god, asking for protection in the belly of the monster. And in spite of the darkness from which he asked to be saved, his prayer was answered, because the mighty cetacean began to heave and vomit, returning the little fish to the ocean's currents. The thankful and happy little traveler went in search of empathetic friends, and he learned to avoid other dangers and temptations. Completely transformed in his concepts of the world, he began to enjoy the infinite riches of life. He came across luminous plants, strange animals, gliding stars, and a variety of flowers in the ocean depths. But best of all, he found many thin and studious little fish, like himself, with whom he felt wonderfully content. He was now living smilingly and peacefully with hundreds of friends in the palace of coral that he had chosen as a delightful home. Looking back on his troublesome beginning, he realized that aquatic creatures could be more fully protected only in the sea, because when summer became unbearably hot, waters from higher altitudes would continue to flow into the ocean. The little fish thought and thought. and feeling an immense compassion for those with whom he had lived his early years, he decided to dedicate himself to their progress and salvation. Wouldn't it be fitting to return and tell them about the truth? Wouldn't it be praiseworthy to assist them by giving them this precious bit of information? The red fish didn't hesitate. Supported by the generosity of the friendly benefactors who lived with him in the palace of coral, he undertook the long trip back. He returned to the river. From the river, he went up creeks, and from the creeks, he swam up the canal that led him back to his first home. Sleek and satisfied as ever because of the life of study and service to which he had dedicated himself, he passed through the barred opening and anxiously went looking for his old companions. Stimulated by his exploit of love, the red fish believed that his return would cause both surprise and general enthusiasm. The entire community would surely celebrate his feat, but he soon learned that no one cared in the least. They were the same fat, lazy fish as always, lolling about in the same mud-filled crannies protected by lotus flowers, from which they emerged only to munch on larvae, flies, and poor little worms. He cried out that he had come home, but no one paid him any mind, because none of them had even noticed his absence in the first place. Receiving only ridicule, he then sought out the kingfish, a fish with enormous skills, and told him about his revealing adventure. The king, somewhat benumbed in his hunger for power, gathered all the other fish and allowed the little messenger to explain himself. Their despised benefactor took advantage of this opportunity and enthusiastically explained that there was another glorious and endless liquid world beyond the pond. The pond was nothing and could disappear at any time. Beyond the nearby drain, another life and another experience unfolded. Outside it, there were creeks decorated with flowers, mighty rivers full of kinds of beings, and finally the ocean, where life appeared richer and more surprising each day. He described the life of the mullet and salmon, the trout and the dogfish. He told them about the sunfish, the rabbitfish, and the buckler dory. He told them that he had seen the sky adorned with millions of sublime stars, and that he had discovered giant trees, huge ships, ocean-side cities, fearsome monsters, submerged gardens, and starfish. He even offered to lead them to his palace of coral, where they could all live peacefully and prosperously. Finally, he informed that such happiness, however, had its price. They would all have to lose a lot of weight, which meant abstaining from so many worms and larvae in their dark hideaways, and they would have to learn to work and study, as much as required for the venturesome journey. When he was done, his listeners guffawed loudly. Nobody believed the little fish. A few speakers took the floor, solemnly stating that the little red fish was clearly delirious, that any other life outside the pond was obviously impossible, that his story about creeks, rivers, and oceans was the mere fantasy of a deranged mind. Others even declared that they were speaking in the name of the fish god, who looked down upon them and them only. Just to ridicule the little fish a little bit more, the king went with him to the drain. But after making a half-hearted attempt to go through it, the king exclaimed loudly,
Can't you see that not even one of my fins would fit through there? You big fool! Get out of here! Don't disturb our peace of mind. Our pond is the center of the universe. No one else has a life like ours.
expelled by these blows of sarcasm. The little fish made the trip back and permanently settled in the palace of coral, biding his time. Some years later, a terrible drought devastated the land. Water levels dropped, the pond where those idle and vain fish lived went dry, and the whole community perished, stranded in the mud. Andre Luis's efforts to light a torch in the darkness is like the little red fish's mission. Enchanted by his discoveries involving the infinite way accomplished after much suffering and conflict, he returns to the environs of the earth's surface to tell his former companions that beyond the little cubicles where they live, another life shines, more beautiful and intense, but which requires detailed individual improvement for the journey through the narrow passageway which gives access to sublime enlightenment. Andre speaks, informs, prepares, enlightens. However, there are many human fish who smile and live amid mordancy and indifference in their search for transitory crannies, in their struggle for temporary larvae. They expect to find a cost-free heaven after death, full of dazzling wonders. But aside from Andre Louis and us humble servants of goodwill, the divine shepherd spoke these imperishable words to all those walking the pathway of human life, to each according to his deeds. Emmanuel, Pedro Leopoldo, February 22nd, 1949. Let's take a
Thank you,
deep breath.
Sunshine. Wow, so much to learn, so many treasures for the soul. Emmanuel is an incredible spirit educator, and we would like to express our deepest gratitude for him, for he invests on humanity through the love of God and through the sponsorship of the Christ who never gives up on us. Right, Sunshine?
It is beautiful, this
Yes.
enriching tale and the lessons in it. Where do we begin, right, Carol?
Exactly. There's so much to extract from the little fish in the pond that is, wow. It's all we can say. It's astonishing. Let us say hi to Rihanna. Hello, Rihanna.
Hi, Rihanna. Lovely
Thank you
to
for
have you.
joining us. Yes, thank you for the beautiful work that you are doing
Yes,
in South
blessing.
Africa on Kardec Radio. You, your daughter, your adorable granddaughter. Oh my goodness. Please give them all of our love and please receive all of our love as you, as a family, press on for the good always. God bless you.
Yes.
Yes, so Andre Lewis is like the little fish, says Emmanuel, right, Sunshine?
Yes.
Because Andre Lewis is courageous to come back from the unknown aspects or areas or regions of the ocean, the big ocean of life, and he is courageous enough to report this reality to us who are in the little lake of incarnate life. Our incarnate life is like the little pond. We can only see so far as incarnate spirits influenced by matter and influenced by the natural forgetfulness of our past deeds, we can only see so far. But why is Spiritism the promised consoler? Because it tells us, in the words of our Master Jesus, everything that He Himself was not able to tell us 2,000 years ago. And what is part of his proposal is to show us how life truly goes on, going back to our previous study, and how our deeds on the earth as incarnate beings lead us to liberate or free ourselves from our shackles of the past, or it may cause us to feel even more tied up depending on our deeds. And like the little fish, Andre Lewis comes back to show us the action and reaction law through several cases in the book Liberation. And Emmanuel invites us to not be like the fish community in the pond and not discard Andre Lewis's narratives as the narratives of the little fish were discarded. Emmanuel is inviting us in this preface to have eyes to truly see the truth and to have ears to listen to this reality. Is this reality easy to take? No, you will see in this book as we study it together that this reality is not sugar coated, is not a fairy tale, it's not the heaven where angels play harp as portrayed mostly in Hollywood and in the fairy tales that we create in our own minds. It is not this fairy tale account. It is a call for us to strengthen the adult in us and to take responsibility for our actions, to get out of the victim role and to learn once and for all that whatever we plant in the garden of our souls, as sunshine always reminds us so beautifully, we shall reap. And it is an opportunity also for us to recalibrate ourselves. If we recognize ourselves in one of the characters that we will be presented with, shall we feel guilty? No, we shall feel absolutely blessed because it is one more call, one more opportunity that the Christ is giving us for us to realign ourselves and plant new seeds in the garden of our souls. This is why our Master Jesus has told us many are called, but few actually listen. This book, Liberation, is meant to liberate, to free all of us from the perceptions that no longer serve us, from the beliefs that are the result of past habits that we can simply recycle so we fly higher. It's an opportunity for us to get to know ourselves better as immortal spirits so that we can progress. So, if we could take the liberty of summarizing the book in two words, we would say self knowledge and spiritual progress. These are the key words that shall lead us to our own liberation. Right, Sunshine?
Beautiful, Carol. You summarized it exquisitely, exactly. And that is our daily challenge, our daily
Mhm,
work. And this
mhm,
book will really help us to understand all the details that will guide us towards the straight and narrow so that we will be staying on the path. And as you had mentioned, and actually, I find it interesting that Emmanuel ends the preface with a quote from Jesus, to
mhm,
each according to his or her own deeds, which is something that brings it home to us. And what is it? It's the law of cause and effect that you so beautifully mentioned as well. The law of
mhm.
cause and effect is really one of the most important laws for us that helps us to understand that God is actually kind of giving us the heads up. It's kind of like a warning
Mhm,
saying, hey, you guys, don't go against the harmony of this beautiful universe. The universe is in perfect harmony. However, please don't destroy it with your thoughts, your words, and your actions. So don't please get aligned. So, of course, we're not perfect yet. We make mistakes. And so we go against the laws of love. We go against the harmony that we experience, for example, in nature, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so then what happens if we choose to go against it? We choose. That's really important, right? Because you spoke of personal, um, um, what's the word?
Responsibility.
Responsibility. Yeah,
Mhm.
you spoke of the person. We choose, even though if we're not conscious of it, we do choose to go against it. And then
Mhm.
what happens? The consequences we impose on our own selves. We are the ones who create our own consequences. And that is really the key for us to understand, that the consequences are imposed by us lawbreakers, and we suffer. Then we
Mhm.
suffer, right? Because we impinged on God's harmonious laws. We got out of harmony ourselves. We're not aligned. And then consequently, we will be suffering. And we see that with those fish. The little fish was smarter. He, out of pain, and that's also very often that happens to us, we experience some kind of pain, loss, or physical pain, or even this virus situation causes many of us some pain, and we start looking around like the little fish was studying the pond. It counted the tiles, and there we found the drain. Maybe we are invited to find our drain too, which will
Mhm.
guide us towards the truth. And what better way than Spiritism? We're so fortunate and so blessed. I thank God every single day that God allows us to have access to the Spiritist studies via books, via modern technology,
Mhm.
via all the selfless helpers, and of course, most and foremost, the beautiful spirits like Andre Louise, Emmanuel, and many, many more, who are like the little fish, feeling empathic for us, who
Mhm.
feel they would like to do the good because they learned out in the greater pond of life that it is really about helping others to come along and understand what the next step is. Spiritism is one of the most amazing tools. It's literally the key to the gospel.
Mhm.
Thanks to the spirit of truth, which encompasses, of course, many, many spirits, helping us understand of how we can align ourselves with God's harmony and God's laws, so that the law of cause and effect doesn't need to kick in for us. Hopefully one day. We know we're still struggling with it, but we're learning. And thanks to Spiritism, we are on this path, steady path, due to hopefully, our discipline, understanding, and boosting our knowledge, and working on our inner transformation, so that we are like travelers on the march towards the good. Right,
Mhm.
Carol?
You're so right, Sunshine. What a beautiful note of hope, courage, and joy you just gave us. I could feel the melody in the words that you were sharing with us. Thank you for the melody of hope that you
Thank you.
produced for us. God bless you, really. Yes, thank
Thank you for
you.
the clap.
And as you said, Sunshine, in your beautiful melody of hope that you just shared with us, self knowledge is the key for our liberation. And we will see in the book, throughout the book, many cases where when the spirits from a higher realm shed light onto the spirits that are currently in a lower realm of understanding, their lives literally transform and they start to seek the good. So self-knowledge is the door that we need to open in order to find the good in every one of the circumstances that surround us. We will have many living proofs of the power of self knowledge as Sunshine so kindly brought to us in the book Liberation itself. So let us right now get in the mode of liberation by engaging in a therapeutic assessment question. Where are we? Where are we in our journey of life thus far? Do we identify ourselves the most with the little red fish? Or do we identify ourselves the most thus far with the community of fish in the little pond? Who do we identify with the most? If we identify with the little red fish, that means that we are willing to engage in a journey of self transformation. That means that we are consciously seeking for divine love, and that means that we have already awakened for the fact that God is counting on us to spread the good news to others, regardless of what others might say. Even if we are faced with ridicule, as the little fish was. If we identify ourselves with the king and others in the little pond, then we are still mostly concerned with meeting our basic needs, and we are not yet at a point where we can look at life from a higher perspective. If we are feeling like the fish in the little pond, we may be experiencing despair right now because our lives have been transformed with the pandemic. We may be experiencing panic, fear, etc. Many strong feelings that may be actually paralyzing us. If we are feeling that way, if you're listening to us right now and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, I am feeling this way. What do I do now? Why?" Like the minions, the minions in the movie Despicable Me. Wah, wah, wah. If we are having a minion moment, that's okay. We are not saying this so that we feel guilty at all. We are saying this because, as Sunshine so beautifully pointed out to us, we have a choice. We can choose how we shall conduct our journey. We, of course, it's okay to feel afraid because we are human and we are dealing with the unknown. It's not the feelings that are the problem, it's how we choose to respond to these feelings that can change. And how do we change how we respond to these feelings? We may be wondering, how do we go from the minion, wah, wah, wah moment to a more Christ centered posture? How? By holding on to certainties. If we keep holding on to uncertainties, then the minions will continue to take over. But if we hold on to what we know, then we can be strong enough. And what do we know, friends? We know that life goes on, right, Sunshine? We just studied the whole book together.
Yeah,
So we
we
now
know
know
that for
life goes
sure.
on. If you have any doubts, friends, go back to Kardec Radio and
Yes,
listen to the program and watch the program. Life does go on. We know
yeah,
that. We
yes,
know that even those who are discarnating are going to heal. If not in the physical plane, they are going to heal in the spiritual plane. We know that God is love. So if we hold on to the certainty, friends, we know we are not being punished. And because God is love, we can conclude that God has a loving plan for all of us. And you may be wondering, all of us? Me too? Yes, you too, the minions, everyone, because God has created all of us equally, and God believes in our divine light. So remember, even in the movie Despicable Me, the minions in the end celebrated life with much joy. And this is the plan that God has for all of us. How shall we get there more quickly? By holding on to these certainties and by looking for our blessings. Instead of looking for what we lack, let's be thankful for what we have. Let us get out of the grief mode. What is the grief mode? The grief mode is when we think that our life has ended because of the pandemic, or that we think that we are never going to be the same, that we miss the coffee shop, that we miss the stores, that we miss the mall, we miss this and that and the other. If we look at life from this deficit perspective, the minions will most definitely take over. Our inner minions will take over. So, how do we get out of the grief mode? We look for what we are gaining. So, therapeutic question number two: where are we in this journey? Are we ready to look for our assets rather than our deficits? And before I pass on the word to our beautiful sunshine, who will most definitely let her light shine always, I would like to say hello to Rogério Rodrigues. Hello, Rogério. Welcome, friend. And he's saying
Welcome.
minion moments. Yes.
Yes.
Minion moments. That's right. It's
Yes.
important to recognize that. And it's important that to recognize too that we can make our inner minions really happy and joyful by
Yeah.
telling them, we got a lot to be thankful for. Let's talk to our inner minions and say, friends, don't worry, we are okay, we are safe because we are divine. And the minions may say, oh, really? Oh, really? And we keep saying, yes, really. Yes, really. Right, sunshine?
Yes, girl. It's so beautiful. I will have minions now on my mind.
I
But
love
what
the
beautiful.
minions. I
I
just
know.
recently watched the movie Despicable Me yet
Yes,
again.
yes,
And
yes.
I could identify with the minions. That's why
Yes.
I am mentioning them.
It's
Yes.
a beautiful picture because it brings it alive and we can really
Mm-hmm.
relate to that, right? Yeah, thank
Right.
you so
Yes.
much, Carol,
Of course.
for
Thanks to
the
the
minion
Pixar
moment.
movie studios, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And yeah,
So
you spoke. Yeah,
our Rihanna Sunshine is saying to us, it is not to feel fear and anguish. It is to acknowledge it and focus on the good. Beautifully
yeah,
said, Sunshine.
yes. No,
Sunshine and
yes,
Rihanna.
Rihanna.
You
Yes,
got it.
yes.
When I feel that I
Perfect.
go through a challenging situation, I say, thank you, God, for teaching me. Rihanna, thank you so much for sharing. That's another therapeutic moment for us. We can ask, not that the difficulty goes away. Let us not push the difficulty into the carpet or under the carpet, because if we are doing that, we are acting like children or minions. The minions
Mhm.
are the ones that say, oh, I don't want to deal with this. So, what Rihanna is proposing is a beautiful way to get out of the minion mode or to calm down our inner minions. Instead of pushing the difficulty away, we shall ask, what am I to learn because God loves me. So God is allowing me to go through the situation because I am to learn and grow. We are on earth to learn and to grow. Thank you, Rihanna. Beautiful therapeutic realization and beautiful therapeutic moment in collaboration with you, friends. Collaborating with you is what makes the program so enjoyable for all of us because we are on earth to learn. Here's another food for the soul here since we are nourishing our souls together. Do we stop to remember, as Rihanna is telling us, that we are on earth to learn and we are not on vacation? Though vacations are from gifts from God as well, living on earth is not a walk in the park because we are supposed to be taking tests. In schools, what do? We learn and we are tested. Then we learn a bit more, then we are tested again. Then we learn a bit more, then we are tested again. And then if we pass all the tests, we graduate. So we are in the testing moment here. It's not the time to say, "Oh, I wish I were in Hawaii." With all the respect to the people who live in Hawaii, God bless you. But this is not the moment for us to think of ourselves in a spa per se. It is the moment for us to ask ourselves, "Am I ready to pass the test?" Because this is what life is about, passing the tests. How do I know? Because we are immortal spirits who live in an experience as incarnates to progress. We cannot progress in inertia. We cannot progress in the comfort zones of our lives. So thank you, coronavirus, really, for pushing us out of our comfort zone. Let us think, friends. I will even type it in as I pass the word to our beloved Sunshine. I will type in, let us think of a blessing that the coronavirus has brought to us. Shine
We are,
away, Sunshine, please.
yeah, you said a very important thing. Yeah, even in this story, the word pest is, I think, or whatever the word was that they used. They said there was a pond is the center of the universe, which is something that we tend
Yes.
to think, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, oh no, a terrible drought devastated the land. So that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a pandemic, but it's different, of a
Yes.
different nature. But it is something that happens that challenged the fish. And in that case, because they did not take this moment that we are invited to take as well with this virus, to do the inner work and to get to know ourselves better in the process, in seeing, as you said so beautifully, the most important thing. Where do we start with this whole process? It's always by getting to know ourselves first, because we need to get a baseline. It's like when we go to a doctor's office, right? They check us out to get a baseline, and then they see how we've changed from there, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is kind of like our spiritual baseline every single day. St. Augustine so beautifully told us in several, suggested to us in several places in the Spiritist literature to do the nightly review. So we
Mm-hmm.
go over the days, okay, I have a minion moment, or maybe two, three, or four, or five minion moments during the day,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
But let's not get stressed out. We all have them. That's why, as you said so beautiful, we're here to learn. But so, how can I work with it? So, how can I boost the adult in me more? How can I hold on to God more? Because why God? Because God is the permanence. It's the peace that when we feel freaked out, where
Mm-hmm.
do we want to look? What doesn't change? Well, God doesn't change. God's
Right.
love doesn't change. God is
Right.
immutable. The
Yeah.
wisdom doesn't change. And the sun, as a representation of God, is a beautiful thing to connect ourselves with. There
Mm-hmm.
have been many books written about the importance of experiencing the sunrise every morning, which is imbuing us with particular sun
Mm-hmm.
ray energy. So even if the sun isn't up, and even if we can't go, I mean, what I mean, the sun is behind the clouds, or even if we live in an area where we can't go outside right now, or in general, we are not out in nature, we can, within the confines of our own homes, if it's
Mhm.
facing the right direction, watch the sunrise from our own homes. And
Yes.
to even say we can go online, there is on YouTube, you can watch the sunrise at the time when the actual sunrise is happening, because the energy is surrounding us. It's a
Mhm.
general energy. And this sun connects us to God. The sun is coming up every single day, and it is
Yes.
calming us because it's reliable. It's always there, and it's non judgmental. It has all the
Right.
qualities of God, which is so beautiful. So that's one thing that we can, incorporate in our practice. And the other thing that comes out of knowing ourselves is during this time of the pandemic, of this virus, we're always invited to be more hygienic, right? Washing our hands, having masks on. I just went to the farmer's market this morning, first one of the year. There everything was sterilized and
Yes.
people had to wash their hands. So we're practicing physical hygiene. But Spiritism helps us with the moral hygiene, with the hygiene of our soul.
Mhm.
And that is really
Mhm.
equally important. And this book, Liberation, will definitely help us with our soul hygiene, because it will teach us of the consequences starting from our thinking and how we can undo them through love, through connection
Mhm.
with God always. And it's the other thing that's really important also, that this pandemic is part of this, the hygienic of our soul, is to dematerialize our outlook and our approach to life. Like the little fish who came back, like Andre Louise coming back, teaching the other fish in the pond, you guys got to lose weight. You guys got, there's another word, but you got to kind of change your ways a little bit. Well,
Uh-huh.
that invitation, a little bit red fish is really talking to us too,
Right.
saying, you guys, we sent this virus to you, or you created the virus, let's put it this way.
Yes.
So now, are you working on your weight? And it doesn't have to be necessarily our physical weight, our body weight, but it's the attachments. It's our anchors that we build to matter. How much have we been able to make this time that we've had in the last 2 months and moving forward, to look at our attachments? How do we anchor ourselves? Are we working on losing weight that way? Are we focusing more on on spiritual matters, or are we still, oh, my money, my house, my this, that, and the other, that's rooted here on earth? So this is really, that could be a therapeutic question
Yes,
assessment
I'm
for.
writing it down. I'm writing
Okay,
it
good,
down
good,
already.
good
You're
teamwork.
speaking and I'm
Yeah.
typing.
Yeah, because this dematerialization is this, so to speak, losing weight will help to
Losing
open our
moral
hearts.
weight, right,
Moral
Sunshine?
weight is the important one.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, because the physical weight will fall off once our moral weight will fall off. Because it's,
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
it's from the inside out more than from
Yes.
the outside in. And this dematerialization will not only help us in our day to day lives, it will make us calmer, more peaceful. It will connect us more with the spirit world, with God, with nature, which is all supporting us on this path of doing the good. But it's also going to help us, dematerialization of our life, dematerializing our life will also help us with our discarnation, which is something that will happen to all of us.
Yes.
It will actually help with the actual process of discarnation, and it will make it easier, and it will change our life after life. So there is no losing ever.
Yeah.
It's just win, 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 by focusing on shedding weight,
Mm-hmm.
shedding moral weight in particular, right? Oh,
Right.
and it comes to mind that in the gospel, Jesus reminded us, for him, this was a very important subject as well, Because on several occasions in the gospel, he teaches us exactly that with many different parables. One is when he says, many are called, but few are chosen. So he
Mm-hmm.
says that the door to salvation is narrow. We are invited to control ourselves and overcome our attachments, our evil tendencies. And
Mm-hmm.
then he brings the parable of the wedding feast to us, right? It's another
Right.
example when he teaches us, when the guests came who were the invitees, who were made excuses. Oh no, I can't come, I have to look after my fields, I have to do this, that, and the other. Why? What are the fields? It's matter, right? It's attachment to matter. Well,
Mm-hmm.
those are probably mainly us.
Yes.
That's really the parable for us to look at ourselves. Are we indifferent to heavenly matters? Are we still attached and can't let go and focus on nourishing our souls, on losing moral weight? And the third example that comes to mind is the parable of the rich young man who approached Jesus and said, how can I find the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus told him, go home, sell all your belongings, come back and follow
Right.
me.
You're so right.
Right? And
Right.
what did the young man say? Oh, no, 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 I can't. No, 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 I got to do this, that, and the other. And again, the invitation for us is that us, right? Are we really
Right.
ready? Are we really ready to lose that weight? Are we really ready to make um, the kingdom of heaven, the building of the kingdom of heaven starting right at this moment more important than our attachments? And the attachment to our physical body is part of it. Not that it's not important for us to nourish
Right.
our body, because it's the sacred vehicle to go through life. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. But to overemphasize it and just focus on that is the other extreme. And so we're invited today to look at that, to look at our moral weight that
Yes.
is keeping us here.
I wrote it all down on the comment,
So
sunshine, so we can
fantastic,
all
girl.
nourish our souls and exercise the muscles of our
Yes.
spirits for immortality.
The
Yay!
gem of the soul, right?
Yes, the gym of the soul. And I just wrote here, sunshine, as you were speaking so beautifully. Thank you, pandemic, for helping us revisit our priorities because
Yes, thank you,
all of the
God. Yeah.
passages from the gospel that you mentioned were invitations from the Christ for us to revisit our priorities. And the
Mhm.
pandemic is kind of like a moral push for us to engage in the same process. So it's beautiful to know that God trusts us with the strength and ability to push ourselves up a little further. The pandemic is the lever that we needed to push ourselves up a little further. Yes.
It's like the drain in that pond, right? The
Yes,
invitation to fit through that drain. Can we
right.
fit already? Are we already
Exactly.
slim enough to fit?
Beautiful, wonderful. And I would
Yeah.
like to share here that Rogério Rodrigues, thank you, Rogério, really. Rogério is saying that the greatest lesson is love for our neighbor. You are so right. Yes, this is why Master Jesus told us that He is the truth, the way, and the life, because
Yeah.
He came to show us that charity is the password through which we can reach goodness inside of us and thus reach for God. In these days when we are using our computers so much, we can relate to the image of a password, right? So now we know that the password, as Rogério is saying, thank you, Rogério, for us to connect to the beautiful infinite Wi-Fi of God, which by the way is free and always available. It never goes down. Thank goodness, thank you God for never going down. The password is charity. You're so right, Rogério. We practice charity by loving our neighbor. In a message that our dear Vanessa Anceloni shared with us right here on Kardec Radio a little while ago, it was a message by Emmanuel that focused on the concept of divine justice. And Emmanuel told us a little immortal, eternal secret that I think is worth repeating to bring us more joy of living. Emmanuel said in that message that if divine justice finds us extending a hand to another brother or sister of ours, whomever they may be, then divine mercy lifts up the consequence that we were supposed to receive from our actions and suspends the divine sentence indefinitely. Isn't that beautiful?
It's amazing. Yes.
Yeah, so
It's
it's
so helpful to know, right?
and so hopeful as well to know
Yes.
that as we are helping and learning to love our neighbor, right, Rogério, as you said, we are helping ourselves. It's beautiful. Like Vanessa shared recently as well, there was a case that was brought up to Chico Xavier in Brazil of a mother who was desperate because her daughter was very sick and she didn't know what to do. So Chico Xavier consulted with Emmanuel, his mentor, and Emmanuel said, tell her to go practice charity. And so Chico relayed the message to her, and she was like, charity? But what do you mean? What am I supposed to do? And Chico said, just help others. And so she went about her days in her city, and she received a phone call of someone telling her, would you like to go to prisons to visit people who are temporarily incarcerated? And she said, sure. So she started baking cakes to take it to the prisoners in Brazil and in Minas Gerais. At that time, that practice was acceptable, and her husband became the barber of the prisoners and everything. And the discarnate mothers of the prisoners were so touched that they went to the woman's home and helped rescue the spirits who were attached to her daughter. And her daughter became who she was meant to be and blossomed beautifully. So she went back to Minas Gerais to thank Chico Xavier, and Emmanuel explained the behind the scenes to Chico. That's the power of love. It's a win-win situation because love always multiplies itself, and it multiplies so beautifully in such unexpected ways that we end up receiving the consequence, the result, the reaction of it, just like perfume. If we put perfume on someone else, our hands become impregnated with that beautiful scent too, right, Sunshine?
Yes, Carol. Beautiful. Yes.
Yes.
So we're
So many
excited.
messages of hope,
Uh,
right?
yes, and we're excited to embark on this study group of hope to learn to be liberated. So we're gonna do this, right?
And shed
Starting
more
next
weight in
week.
the gym
Yes.
of the soul,
We're
right,
gonna be very slim
Sunshine?
at the end of the process.
Yes, exactly. So we
Yeah.
will now engage in our final prayer moments, already hopeful that we can shed more weight together every Saturday at 1:30 on Kardec Radio as we liberate ourselves with André Lewis and blessed Chico Xavier. So shall we then engage in a final prayer with much gratitude?
Yes,
Yes,
please, Carol.
thank
Would you lead the
you.
way?
Yes, maybe
Beautiful.
we can do it together. I will start and I will pass the word to you. Okay, Sunshine?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful mentors of Kardec Radio. We are so thankful to this beautiful platform of hope. We know that even in times when our physical ability to act is limited, we know that in spirit we are always free to choose the best in ourselves and in others. We are always free to choose to act out of love and for love. We are always free to choose to improve ourselves. We are always free to choose to learn. We are always free to think of the good, to seek the good, to visualize the good, and to mold the good no matter the circumstances. We are always free to practice immortal, loving skills. We are always free to believe in you, dear God, and to hold on to you, dear God. So we are thankful to be incarnated on the earth exactly at this time, so precious for our spiritual growth. And we visualize beautiful, luminous lavender flowers being distributed in baskets of light to the spirit mentors working under our beloved Master Christ to bring hope, joy, and healing to all hospitals on the earth, to all of those who are transitioning to the spiritual realm, liberated from the physical body in dramatic circumstances, to all healthcare providers, to all of those who feel abandoned, fearful, and in despair. Let this be a beautiful therapeutic moment for them. Let us visualize the Christ embracing them all. Let us each of us too receive a beautiful lavender flower as well. And let us allow this healing perfume and light to embrace each and every one of the cells in our body, giving us new revigorated energy, disposition, and hopeful mindset, knowing, believing, and holding on to the certainty that we are children of God, reincarnated to progress. We pass the word to our dear sunshine with much gratitude.
And as we envision these beautiful bouquets of roses being given out to all those who are suffering and all those that are helping those who are in pain and sick and in suffering. And as we envision these roses being given to the leaders of the different countries to make good decisions that are good for all concerned, we also see ourselves giving roses to each and every thought that is fearful or stressful or worrisome or angry, as we know that these thoughts are usually linked to spirits, and spirits will receive these roses with gratitude, as we're realizing that our own inner transformation is a charitable act for spirits who are populating the space around Earth, who may be helping us to connect to stressful thoughts, particularly during this time of the pandemic. And as we're envisioning these bouquets of flowers being handed out, we, with so much gratitude in our hearts for being able to study this new book, helping us to understand the mechanisms of our connection to the spirit world. We are asking for permission for today to conclude our gathering with much love and gratitude in our hearts for everyone concerned, both incarnated as well as discarnated. And so be it.
So be it. Thank you, sunshine, for
Thank
your
you,
beautiful,
Carol.
loving light.
Thank you, dear
Thank
Carol, for
you.
letting it shine from the East Coast towards the
Yes,
West.
together in the name of God always. And thank you,
Yes, thank you so
friends,
much.
for joining us. Rogério Rodrigues, thank you for your comments. Rihanna, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
If we haven't said your name, please receive our embrace of gratitude. And if you would like to contact us, you can always write to us at kardecradio@gmail.com. Thank you, friends, and
Bye.
many, many beautiful blessings always. Bye.
Bye.
Big virtual hug.
Yes.
Bye, friends.
Bye.